everybody. We're going to get the doors shut here in a second, and we'll get started. Thank you guys so much for coming out to Speaking Out, podcasting while LGBTQIA+. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So, DragonCon is working with a charity this year, and we are also participating in it. It's the American Heart Association. You can donate via, I think we have a can or something around here, where you can toss a few bucks in. DragonCon is matching us up to $100,000. So let's take DragonCon for everything they've had. You can also text AHA 2019 to the number 44321. I'll repeat this at the end. And you can just send a text donation that way. There's the box. Look, it's so sad and empty. It hungers. Fill it with your money to benefit the Heart Association. It does all the good in the world. And if you like this panel, if you want to see more panels like this, make sure to rate us on the DragonCon app. You can just open up the panel on the app, click the star, and rate us. So let's get started by starting at the end. If all of my panelists could introduce yourselves, and if you are comfortable, please give your orientation and pronouns for the audience.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tracy Holt. Cisgender gay man, he, him. I am host of the Diversity Issues podcast. We're a podcast where we talk about like diversity, representation, inclusion of marginalized groups, specifically in indie comics.
Is this on? Are you on? Yeah. Now it's on. Okay, the switch was off. I'm Carmella Smith, she, her. I'm a bisexual individual. I am one of the hosts of Trivial Warfare. We are a pub trivia podcast with a focus on pop culture.
Hi there, Rob Roberts. He, him's fine. I'm a gay guy from California, and I co-host Orange Lounge Radio, a long-running video game podcast, which is live on Twitch every Sunday night at VOG Network, VOG Network.
And I'm Kaitlyn Sudol, she, her. I'm a lesbian, and I am co-host of Worst Bestsellers, which is a literary podcast where we read popular books of questionable quality.
I am Ellie Collins, she, her, bisexual individual. My wife's right there. And I am a podcaster. I do the Blood Crow Stories, queer horror audio drama, and a whole bunch of D&D stuff. So first we're going to get started with what I feel is the most important part of podcasting while queer LGBTQIA+, which is sharing resources and how we lift each other up. There was recently a trend, which I hope it continues, I've seen it kind of die off, called On 22 Review, which is where on the 22nd of every month, if there's a podcast you listen to that you haven't reviewed, go review it. Give it 5 stars. What are some ways that you guys think are good to lift each other up in this community?
I mean, just liking and sharing things on social media. If you're enjoying something, if you're appreciating what someone's doing, even if you're not a listener, share it. Get the word out there.
Something I personally like to do is the hashtag Audio Drama Sunday on Twitter to share my favorite, because I think she has a shirt that says it, but podcasts really are a queer culture. So I like to share my favorite gay podcasts. But honestly, I agree with Tracy. Share, shout out, suggest everything to your friends. Be like, hey, I think you'll like this. Let me show you how to get to it.
Yeah, definitely the sharing and the promoting. I know when I do personal streams on my personal Twitch, I really try to give shout outs and exposure to other, LGBT plus fam that I know that is doing this as well, and try to, use a lot of the rating and the hosting and that functionality to, bring visibility to that side.
Can you speak to the rating? Because I think some people don't know how ratings actually make us visible.
Yes, and that might sound kind of strange if you don't know what that is. But basically what a raid is, let's say I'm streaming a video game. I'm playing something like Final Fantasy 14, and I've been playing it for a couple of hours, and you know what? I'm ready to wind down and go to sleep for the night or what have you. Well, I could just pull the plug, fade to black, end of the show, right? But the nice thing about Twitch is it has this functionality called raid, where if I type /raid and then the name of another broadcaster, a 30-second clock will come down that gives me a chance to say my goodbyes, and stay tuned. We're gonna go over to Jeff's channel or something, and then you can actually what'll happen is that when the clock is done, the new broadcaster that you decided to raid, they come up and all your viewers automatically have moved to that channel. So it's kind of like you're taking your audience and you're passing it to somebody else. And let me tell you, like, as as a broadcaster who's like looking for, views wherever I can, that is like the best gift. Even if it's like a 2-person raid, who cares? It's a raid. Somebody thought of you.
Yeah.
Great.
I learned that with my recent Twitch thing that I'm getting into.
Yeah.
It's only me playing House Flipper. I'm not even joking, and I had people coming in going, "Oh my god, this stream is so chill. It's just soft music and we're just painting walls." So what about you?
So the format of our show is that the two of us talk with a guest about other books. So a lot of ways that I have just been trying to address resources and promote other people is reaching out to other members of the community that I think have something worth saying, especially if like we're doing a very heteronormative book, to reach out to queer guests to have that perspective when we're discussing it, and also, shine a spotlight on their work for our listeners.
And then for us at Blood Crow, because we've been working on it for a couple years now, we're doing a new format change because there's really not a lot of queer horror that exists. And, we've built a pretty good standing. I think we have a wonderfully dedicated fan base. So after our 4th season, we're ending doing full seasons ourselves, and we're shifting to letting queer creators submit their own short horror stories, and we will produce it in a 1 to 2 episode arc. And we'll be releasing those just to give people a chance to get their voice out there to 7,000 regular listeners.
Oh, maybe you and I should talk later.
We absolutely should.
And I do have one more thought on that.
Yeah.
And just another thing that is good to do, and this kind of can depend on the format of your show, because maybe it's hard to do if you're an audio drama, for example, but collaboration with other shows is a good way for basically both shows to get word out about the other show to their audience.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do that on our show as well. We'll have guests from other podcasts come in, and actually any of our guests that come on, we allow them to give any shout outs, any causes they want to promote. So if they have a charity that they're really invested in, we're like, hey, if you want to shout out this charity and their website, throw it out there while we're recording, and that way we can get them some sight. So
the next question, and for those of you that have been on panels with me before, these are going to be hard questions. So the podcasting fan base is very open to LGBT creators. The podcasting community itself tends to be very open to LGBT creators. But when it comes to our own industry, we tend to be very insular. And typically LGBT creators stick with other LGBT creators. What do you think is our best strategy for breaking out of pigeonholing ourselves into an insular community and also claiming a place among non-LGBT creators without having to be the token gay creator? Welcome to Panels with me. I'm not going to ask, what's it like being an LGBT creator? It's rough. Let's talk about it.
Well, I am on a show with 3 straight men. So I'm the only woman, and I'm the only queer, so I'm holding it down 2 ways. So I... it can be challenging. You get a lot of questions, which is fine. I'm happy that people want to learn.
Thank you.
That is a lot better. Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah, they don't.
Just kind of try to have some patience when you interact.
God, yeah.
I'm actually very bad at that. I will be the first going, why are you asking me this? And just try to do some reach outs. Sometimes it's really hard because you're like, why do I always have to do this? Why can't you come to me? But if it's something that you really want to do, then unfortunately we have to do some work.
Madam.
Sue Storm, everyone.
Sue Storm.
Again, the real hero situation. The only person I met all day who knew where this room was. I talked to several employees. They were like, I don't fucking know. And I'm like,
Everyone, if you don't know who this is the fabulous, wonderful drag queen, Dax ExclamationPoint.
I'm gonna sit here because it's closest. That's the reason.
Yes, that works.
Hello, room. You
So-
might know me from obviously Teen Wolf. On TV. Otherwise, that irrelevant. It's fine. How's it going? Sorry, I'm super late. I got so lost. No one knew where this room was. I asked a hotel employee, the Dragon Con employee, who was like posted up in a chair, and he was like, "That way," and I was like, "To what end, sir? To what end?" He had no response. And I'm like, "Well, that's a good sign. We're just gonna do it. Hey, happy Dragon Con. If you're like me, you've been hungover for 4 days straight with no end in sight. Invisible."
Yeah, fans are how we survive. Exactly.
Because the fans make it happen. It's a joke.
Yeah, so we were just talking about breaking ourselves out of being insular within the podcasting community, sticking with other gay creators, pushing ourselves into the spaces of non-gay creators.
Awesome. I mean, collaborating with queer creators and queer content makers in general is the essence of life. Like, if you're not doing it, you should be doing it. I mean, because no matter who you meet at a convention like this especially, which is super easy to do, because everyone is so friendly and so open, and nerds are nothing if not polite. Like,
We will
not
listen.
even a joke. That's just a fact. But like, it is so necessary for representation and for visibility and for just keeping the media moving, because the heteronormative, boring, straight, basic world, all they want to do is reboot shit. All they want to, sorry, I'm cursing. I shouldn't probably curse, but I'm now into that. Sorry, I'm exhausted because
It's okay.
I was so lost. And with my anxiety, that's a problem. Like, but no, it's important because what people want to do is rehash memorable things that we all know from our childhood. Mm-hmm. And while that's nice and nostalgia is great, and as nerds, we love that. If I loved it when I was 8 years old, I still love it now. At 23, do not Google that. 23. But you do, and people really want to just like keep remaking nonsense that we've all seen before. We know the story. We know the characters. We know what they've done, what they've gone through, what their costumes are going to be. We know it. But then you have queer creators like Chris Anka, who I adore. White Trees, if you haven't read it yet, look into it. Yes, it's very erotic in the best possible way. I'm saying, like, if you were furry, you're gonna love it. If you like elves, you're gonna love it. If you like nonsense sword battles, you're gonna love it. People like him and creators like that, we need to be supporting more. And any convention you go to, if they're there, they're down to fucking talk. They're down to talk. And they're looking for friends. Yeah. And it's a dream. It is a dream.
Absolutely. So let's see. So piggybacking off of that, because there are so many of us in this podcasting community that are LGBTQIA+, tons of queer creators, tons of queer listeners. So, but we kind of see this trend where a lot of the big popular shows are cisgendered straight white men. And that is very unfortunate. So from a creator standpoint, how do we encourage that kind of behavior from the fans who want to support us, because many people don't know how, and so to like going up to someone at a con, you might not even know they're there. So how do we as creators get the community to know what we need from them?
I just when you talk about that, how all the big podcasts are like, the cisgendered, we all know that joke too about what do you call like 4 white dudes hanging out in their basement? A podcast, right? You've heard this, but I gotta say, I've heard that joke and it does kind of bother me because I'm like, no, podcasting is how we get voices out there, and I want everybody to feel like that they can podcast, whether it's, you are in a sexuality minority, whether you're in a gender minority, whether you're in a racial minority. Podcasting is for everybody. It's what? Queer culture, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, And one way I definitely want to support that is to just reinforce that notion. Yes, you can podcast. If you are sitting in this room and you're thinking about podcasting, do it. How can I help? I can't do it for you. Okay, that's the thing I can't do.
But how can I help?
But how can I help? How can we help? How can anybody up here help? Because I think that's the best way to get more, and then we can have more people to support each other in those different types of projects, is that we lift each other up and help each other create.
Fully agree. Even though we are in a basement, I fully agree.
I mean,
This is a lot of white people in a basement, and we are making a podcast.
Honestly, it's fine. It's cool. But yeah, agree.
I
Just
always
do it.
Yeah,
Just
I
do
always
it.
encourage, if you're a fan of a podcast, because this is what I tried to do once I realized I'm listening to a lot of cis straight white podcasts. If you love that one, look through the tags, find another show in the similar vein that stars marginalized people. Promote that along with, if you're like, man, I really loved this new episode of My Brother and Me, but have you also heard of this show? Every time you're gonna hype up a show that is doing that, bring along a minority show with it. And just kind of make that kind of your double team of like, hey, if you like this, you might like this. Did you like that new episode? Well, this show's also like that. And just bring someone along for the ride with you.
And I'll say, sort of jumping off what Rob was saying, if you are a fan of a show that has a format that includes guests that are not strictly celebrities, like we have guests on our show, we find those guests by either people who we're friends with or people who message us and say, hey, like, I have a lot of opinions about this book, and I have a unique perspective, and I would like to be on your show. And we accept like 90% of the people. Sometimes it takes a while because we're bi-weekly, but like reach out to other creators and other shows that you're interested in. I mean, even if it's just for advice, I think that there are a lot of us who are desperately willing to help get more queer voices out there.
Yeah, definitely. One of the cool things about podcasting is there actually is, believe it or not, a low barrier of entry.
Yeah.
There are people that record into their iPhones, edit it, and then upload it into Apple iTunes. Yeah. And I think they're great. If you don't like something, the way that the show that I'm on got started is we were looking around for other trivia podcasts, didn't like any of the ones that we had, so we made one in a format that we liked. And we grew it from there. So if you hear something that's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it would be better this way, or I could do this twist on, different stories or different formats, then do it. It's a fairly low barrier of entry, and your voice is valid and definitely should be heard.
Totally.
Yeah. My entire career
even
started
if it's
out
just
in
by
misogyny.
me, I will listen to you.
Totally.
I promise.
But honestly, it's the same with like any creative field you're into.
Yeah.
Whether it's illustration or design or cosplay or anything else, people have this idea that like when they think about doing a thing that they really want to do, they want to be like the top level when they begin. You're never gonna do that.
No.
Your first time is gonna be a mess. Accept that. Embrace it. My first year of drag, I wore bronzer as foundation. No one told me.
Honey.
No one told me.
They did you so dirty.
Here we are.
That's shade in itself.
No one
It's that cutthroat Atlanta scene.
told me. You have no idea. So the takeaway, I think, is that like just like if you're creative and you have an idea or a vision, just go for it. Like, just chase that vision, knowing that it's going to be a progression. Is you're going to get better eventually because there's nowhere but up from anywhere you start.
Exactly.
End of sentence.
So, again, and Dax wasn't here for. I ask very hard questions.
Whoa, please.
So for this one, obviously we are LGBT podcasters, but we are very much more than that.
Yeah.
We are people. So how do you personally maintain the balance of representing your community without taking the full burden on yourself and that affecting your work as a podcaster?
Me? Specifically me?
Anybody.
Oh, okay. 'Cause you're looking at me, so I was very lost.
If you would like to answer first, you can.
I mean, I got something to say. I think just being a queer person in the state of the world we're in right now, in this climate, it's exhausting. I think just existing is taking on a burden regardless.
Yeah.
Like, the pain's gonna be there regardless. It's what you do with it, and it's how you let it affect you and change your work, if it does at all. If that's the point of your work, is to bring light to that burden of existing in a world where people literally do not want you here. Mm-hmm. That's on you. Otherwise, you can just go. I mean, like, I use my social media a lot of times. Yes, I'll say serious things. I hate doing it. But when it has to be said, it has to be said. I try to keep things light and airy as much as I can to kind of deflect against my own anxiety and depression issues in general. But on the real, I'd rather be napping. Like, cat. So, I mean, like, it's really up to you and how you want to, how you really decide you want to embrace it. And again, that's also a process of, like, growth and growing and knowing. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you're going to figure out your direction and your path and what you want to say and how you want to say it. You're going to find your voice. It will take time. It is not already there. That's a myth that society and TV and the media tells you, that, like, you open your mouth, you can sing. There's always that one girl in the background who's quiet and mousy. And then she opens her mouth and she's like, oh, so you were Beyonce. That was rehearsed. Like, she's practiced this. But we all think that's what's going to be. Mm-hmm. We don't accept that it's gonna be a progress, and you can't be hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. You can be critical, and you can definitely, like, analyze and tweak and refine your craft, but it's not just gonna instantly happen.
And I think that's what a lot of us hit is, like, you know, me running a queer horror show and being, you know, I have a wife, I'm openly bisexual. There does come the, like, well, I have to make sure to be the good queer podcaster. Yeah. I have to be good. Yeah. I can't make a misstep. I can't, and you know, that's anxiety and depression. Welcome to your 30s. You have that. And
or in general.
Yeah.
And you just do.
At 23, like Dax.
Because you're what? You are in that chair, Blanche.
Yeah.
You are.
You are in that chair, Blanche. But yeah, so that becomes the burden, which is where this question came from, that I personally struggle with as a podcast creator, of trying to depersonalize from being the good queer podcaster. Yeah. And I don't do anything wrong. I am wonderful for this community, because any misstep could hurt us. Yeah. And so exactly. That, yeah.
I think at the same time, though, like, the more of your authentic self that you are on the show, the better I think that's going to be for connecting of all your different types of listeners. Mm-hmm. And maybe I kind of feel this way because, you know, I mentioned I do a podcast in video gaming. Okay, so I'm in gaming culture for the last 17 years. Like so I feel like in some regards I've been swimming with sharks, you know, in that regard, because absolutely. We know there's a lot of not so great people in there, but you know what? There's a lot of really awesome people in there too. Oh, yeah. You know why? Because I bet a lot of us in here play video games and all that stuff too. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
So when I do my show, you know, I try to. I'm not apologetic about who I am. I'm very open with that.
Oh, like, I don't let anyone see me be that way.
Yeah. No, it's like, and it's just like, this is a matter of fact. I have a husband, and this is, you know, the way it is, and I just this is normal. This is my day-to-day thing. But I'm also able to use this as an opportunity because I am fortunate that I have an audience. Of course, I have some LGBTQIA plus in the audience, but I have a lot of cis white het guys out there that listen mm-hmm. too. And it's been an awesome opportunity for me to be able to say, like, everybody's talking about this one and ragging this game company on Twitter for whatever because they're forcing that gay agenda down our throats. Well, let me explain to you actually for a minute, like, why this is important to me. Why it is awesome when I play a game like Mass Effect and I can experience the same gender romance in that game. Because that's something I never really had representing growing up. Imagine if you couldn't see yourself in the story. You can't be that, you know, and I'm allowed to have that conversation, and I'm, you know, it's normal. I don't try to, like, bully people or beat people over the head with it, but I think the response I've gotten has been very good and genuine, where people will go, huh, I never thought about it that way. That is like 99% of trying to get people to understand. It's just, I never thought about it.
And like I feel like with representation and trying to explain to someone why it's important that you are seen or someone like you is seen on screen.
Yeah.
Here's what works the best in my experience. Find a cis, het, straight person of any kind. When you misgender their labradoodle, they get triggered. I'm like, the feeling you just felt right there, multiply that by 100. That's literally what we go through every day. Because a lot of them never had that feeling. So they can empathize to an extent. They really understand, and they're not gonna. But you can try to break it down from this best you can. But I hope they get it. And I do see like things like Mass Effect and like other games, other anime series and especially comic series and movies that are doing that. They're pushing it. People call it agenda. We're queer. We have no agenda besides literally existing.
Yeah.
We literally just want snacks and a nap.
Yeah,
Like-
snacks and a nap. And cats to pet. That's all I want.
Art.
Me.
Art is a reflection of society. And if we are to believe that video games in my world are truly art, which I do believe, then there should be reflections of society in that art. Just as when you go to a museum, you see a reflection of all different types of culture.
There's a great article I need to send you that they actually discovered having heterosexuality in a game is actually more difficult to code than having any game where you can romance someone. It takes three times as long to code heterosexuality than it is to just let you romance whoever you want.
I believe, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting this, but I believe the game was The Sims, and that is why that game was one of the first, because it was kind of a bug.
Yeah.
But it was a bug, but then they kind of had to really ask themselves, is it a bug? And finally somebody there said, no, it's not a bug.
No, it's not.
It's a feature.
Yes.
It's also important to remember that you're not going to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
No.
Like,
But I think a lot of podcasters struggle with that.
they struggle with that because they want to be the good queer, you know? And I feel that way. You know, I've already mentioned that the podcast I do is with 3 straight men. And, you know, a lot of the guests, a lot of the trivia community in general, like if you have ever watched an episode of Jeopardy, guarantee you there's at least 2 of the 3 people are white men. And so it's a very normative kind of community, but you know, we exist out there. But it's also, you know, when you get questions or you try to educate or give clarification, I'm a bisexual person, but I cannot give you the narrative of a bisexual trans person or a bisexual NB person or a gay NB person, you know, just something like that.
I can give you appropriate questions to ask.
Yes, I'm like, I can point you in a direction,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you what that's like, just like I can't tell you what it's like to be a person of color. I don't have that story. So you can't be everything to everyone. You can't be the monolith. You know, yes, I'm queer, but I should not be the only queer in your life. So, you know, look around at your group of friends and, you know,
I
ask
guarantee
yourself
if
some
you
questions.
If you think you don't have an LGBT friend, there's a reason your friend hasn't told you.
And
Yeah.
you know, with this whole thing, I actually kind of have a little bit of the other problem is like, I'm a person that, I came out, I was older when I came out, I was like 30, and, you know, still most people read me as straight, and I have the insecurity of worrying about not being gay enough. And it's like,
Feel that.
you know, I want to
that feel like?
Dax is like, can't relate.
But I'm honestly asking.
I honestly had no idea,
what
Dax.
that's like.
No
Is
idea.
that a thing? Is that a thing? You're right, sorry.
No, you're good.
The door was open, the cat walked in. Sorry about it.
But, you know, one thing I want to do in this space, well, I mean, part of our, you know, the premise of our show is bring light to creators of marginalized groups, but also in the space, I want to be making inroads for other queer people who don't have as much privilege as I do, because it is very easy for me to be accepted by the cis-het world because...
Passing.
I pass. But at the same time, I want them to know, like, a lot of times when I go to cons, I'll wear, you know, some sort of rainbow stuff because I want people to know, because I'm trying to create space for people that, you know, get judged more. And,
Exactly. And especially in a convention setting, it's like queer nerds have always been there.
Yeah.
We've always been there. We've just always been polite nerds. So we're quiet, we're in the background, but like I love like going to like more cons now and seeing people just like wearing blatant ignorant rainbows. Just whoa, that's the look. Just rainbows. I love it. It needs to be done.
Literally
It
wearing
needs to
rainbows on
be
my
done.
shoes
Agreed.
right now.
I'm in a cosplay of a robot. I can't say anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and we're gonna do Q&A after this. We'll be tossing the catch box. It's a microphone, so we just toss it to you and you just talking to the top of it. But for the last one, what kind of changes would you like to see to come into the community that can make LGBT folks feel more welcome to come in and can help non-LGBT folks contribute to bringing those people in, because we shouldn't be the only ones bringing in new LGBT people. We're always here to encourage you, but what do you think as the community, including the non-LGBT people, can do to make it feel more welcoming?
There's so many layers.
I think the one experience that we've had is there's another podcast that is similar to ours with a similar listenership, maybe a little bit more. It's done by 2 cis straight white guys. And they reached out to us and said, like, we like what you're doing. You have a perspective that is different than ours, and we would like to do something with you so that we can introduce your perspective to our listeners who are mostly cis straight white dudes, which was really, really nice of them. And we have a continuing relationship with them, and that was very meaningful to me when it happened. And I would like to see more self-aware, cis straight podcasters reach out to queer podcasters they know and try to elevate them, even if you think that it's a question that I always ask people at conventions and book fairs and things is, what is something that you would recommend in concert with your product? So if you happen to be out here and not queer right now and have a podcast, see if there's another podcast that's like yours or is a similar subject that has queer creators, and recommend it to your listeners.
Yeah, just the cognizance, which it sounds like duh advice. Find other queer creators and promote them, but you'd be surprised how many people don't think about that to intentionally find those people.
Yeah, and honestly, people do it all the time. They do that kind of thing all the time, and it's always triggering to me, especially as someone who does drag. It's the same idea of, like, it's easy and obvious to support your local drag queens. Yeah. Support your local drag queens. Do they though? Not always. And I mean, yes, making an active effort to purposely go out and support your queer creators or people that are doing things around you is a logical step. People don't always do it, but you should still go into every situation when you find a thing that you enjoy and try to support it, knowing they're an independent business, that you're not corporately sponsored, there's no backing, there's no money here.
Yeah.
We really need it to live.
Yeah, and
that's it.
I've met a lot of people that don't know that drag queens make their money from tips.
Oh.
And I grew up in the drag scene, and I was like, no, you go, you take money with you.
Always.
I did a show last night. That's what I got. It might be $8. I don't know. Because it's crumpled. So.
That's just drag culture, honey.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people unfamiliar, and it's similar with podcasting. Patreon is often how many of us make our rent. On Blood Crow Stories, our website's entirely paid for by Patreon, and it's even just $1. You know, I'm terrible at keeping up with Patreon because we have so much going on the show right now, which if you saw our slew of announcements on our Twitter, you get why. But, like, people don't know that Patreon keeps our lights on.
Yeah.
And, you know, so also doing that, there's a running gag that there's the same $5 bill circulating around the audio drama community because we all support each other on Patreon.
And people also don't realize, like, people that, you know, make their money and their livelihood through Patreon, it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they also have a full-time job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, creating content is a job of work. Like, it is hard to, like, be on it and be ready to, like, release things and have things planned to be released and making sure that it, like, you know, hits your demographic, hits all the boxes you want to check, and still is true to yourself, but then doing it on a regular, reliable schedule so your audience understands it's going to happen when it happens. Because people are fickle. And if it doesn't happen and it's not on a regular-ish basis, they will unfollow you.
Yep.
And your numbers can drop quickly.
And that's
the
why we saw
numbers
that.
will make you money.
That's why we saw that whole slew recently of, like, YouTube creators all having burnout at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There were like 6 of them that went through a burnout period.
Because the algorithm was working against them.
Yep.
I will say a way that people can help us is if we if a queer person takes the time and the emotional labor to educate you on something, try to apply it.
And try to share it.
And try to share it. I mean,
Definitely.
you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to shout out my guys again on the show. They make mistakes. They fumble. They're human beings, but they do try because they ask for the information. They're willing to learn. But if someone has taken the time to educate you on something, on a challenge that they have, try to apply the information. That's one of the best ways that you can help is apply and share that information and educate someone else.
Yeah, because we do a lot of the emotional labor of explaining things, but if we explained it to you, and now you explain it to 3 other people, now we didn't have to explain it 4 times.
That's correct.
And, with that, also, I mean, as a queer creator, taking care of yourself, like self-care is important.
Yes.
And it's good to explain things to people, but if you're not up to it, you don't have to.
Yeah, especially like being a queer person of color, especially.
Oh God.
You are not obligated to educate anyone. You're not. I mean, it's great to do, but I know I definitely get exhausted having to explain pronouns or things, or I mean, like in my day job, people like to say the word retarded a lot, and I'm like, here's what we're not gonna do right now.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to say this, but I'm gonna have to say this.
Here is the line.
Yeah, here's what we're not doing today or ever again in life. And it's exhausting. I didn't want to have to go there, but I went there because it needed to be done. And you'll know those times when like somebody, is asking ignorant questions, and if they're being aggressive with it, and it's like, well, I don't understand. What is it? That guy, you're like, not gonna do it. But if it's someone who's genuinely interested, and because you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, you cannot help them, and you have to make sure that the person you're talking to is receptive to what you're saying. And you'll know 5 minutes into the conversation, you're like, oh, you're not even listening. Walk away. That's fine.
Are they trying to understand, or are they just trying to dispute you?
Exactly. Which
The
it could be either or.
discourse TM,
Yeah.
I just want the discourse. I want to have the conversation. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You're trying to win.
People nowadays are so offended by everything. Or are you problematic?
Or are you just a jerk? And
Remember, all your faves are problematic.
and
Because the 90s.
there was a running joke in audio drama creators of the it was the Big Brother Big Sister logo, but it was like a straight flag and a gay flag, and what it was it spawned out of a joke conversation of LGBT creators saying like, well, we want to bring more people in, and then like a straight creator would be like, wait, I do know this one lesbian that she wanted to start a podcast. Can I connect her with you? And like, yeah, you might just be a straight creator and you don't know how to help your LGBT friend that wants to get into it. Hook them up with another one. Help bridge the gaps and bring us together, because that's something that you can actively do without knowing anything about the situation. I guarantee whatever your friend that needs help with, there's a podcaster that is of their similar orientation or understands. And so that can be a great way to bridge the gap.
I want to piggyback off something, your story a little bit ago, where you mentioned that the heterosexual podcasters who reached out to you. I think that's an amazing story. I love that story. I think it's also important that we not be afraid to go the other direction and reach out to the other podcasters, that are cishet and what have you, because, and I think a lot of times we're very shy. We might be afraid of no. We might be afraid, I'm going to have to explain these things and so forth. But I think it's so important that we realize that we are strong enough, we are good enough, we are at that same level to hang with those folks.
Exactly.
And that's where we, as queer creators, can help each other out, is lifting each other up to that level. And that's where the insular bubble is good, right?
Yeah.
Because it helps us know that we are good enough and we can hang with people, and now it's about growing beyond that to others as well. I just want to make sure I got that out too, is that like, I love that story, and that's great that people are reaching out, and big ups to them, but like, we got to go chase them too. Absolutely, both ways.
Yeah, and that's part of what we've done with Blood Crow Stories. Is anytime there's representation for something that I'm not a part of or I don't understand, I go find someone and talk to them, or I go find someone to play that character. For anyone who's listened to Black Chapel, Wombly, the Muskogee Indian, is played by a Muskogee gentleman. All the Muskogee he speaks in the show is authentic. He had a hand in all of his lines. And, our new season, we have a lesbian woman of color. She's played by a woman of color. I advise on the lesbian parts. you can find people that can inform you, and you can write about things that aren't your experience, but make sure you source it.
Yeah.
And so with that, we are going to open it to questions. We got 20 minutes, so just raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna use the chest pass and eye contact. So
I have a question.
Where am I going?
I have a question.
Oh.
How does this thing work? Because I don't throw technology because I'm scared it's gonna die.
It's full of foam.
It's squishy.
That's all.
I'm gonna throw to you right here, okay?
We're queer cat cats. See? We are queer nerds. We don't do sports.
We don't throw well.
We do never.
I said it yesterday. I might have a wife, but I didn't play softball.
Okay, first off, at least we have the confirmation it's squishy.
Yes.
Okay. Second off,
It's the worst.
this is why on my digital media track
no way.
bio card I have -1 strength. So I apologize.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, you're stereotyping, but no,
it real.
it real.
No, I may look like the butch of my marriage, but only she can carry the groceries. So, what is your question?
Got me.
So we talked a little bit about, being an advocate and when to speak out and educate people and when it's exhausting and maybe you don't want to take on that responsibility. So we have 2 bisexual women on the panel. I myself am one as well. And I do find that sometimes, not only do I have to find myself educating heteronormative people about bisexuality, but I also find that sometimes I'm having to bring the homosexual community into what bisexuality
The biphobia is rough.
It's
and
real.
the fact that we're not all promiscuous free
Exactly.
people, right? So how do you guys navigate that?
Personally, for me, I lead the conversation with, and this is my wife. And they go, okay, but you're bi. I go, uh-huh.
And
And I just, every time they ask a stupid question, and this is petty of me, but
hilarious, so
like
do it.
like I said earlier, I grew up with drag queens. I was a drag king for 3 years, so that was my world. Every time they ask a stupid question, I just go, why? they go,
stolen. It's mine now.
they'll say, well,
You
I
can't have that no more.
thought, they say, like, I thought
Just
bisexuals
buy
like
it.
to, get around. I go, why?
But why?
Why do we do that? Like, I act like I don't know the information that they're trying to present to me.
I'm following. Because I can just foresee it in a bar setting.
Yeah.
And they're drunk and just like, why?
Why?
I will say, for me personally, I'm on the other end. I don't have to go, this is my wife. I'm like, this is my partner who is male. And I do struggle with it because, am I queer enough? Am I holding it down enough? And I will tell you, a lot of times I don't feel that way. I was married to a man for 8 years. And
same with my marriage to a man. Felt like I wasn't in the community.
I felt like I was in the community, and I didn't come out until after I was married, which was hard because I thought, oh, this shouldn't matter anymore because I'm married.
Right.
But
people don't care.
people don't care anymore, and I struggled with it hardcore for years. Again, I'm no longer married to this man. Kind of weaponized that sexuality against me, which was very toxic.
Same happened to me. We need to have a talk.
Yeah,
later.
Ellie and I are gonna be BFFs after this panel.
By chat.
So, but it's really hard because, but I do, people are like, oh, so are they gay? I'm like, well, bisexual people exist. We're here. Yeah. So
We're bi and we're tired.
we're very. Most bi people I know are anxious, depressed, and we just want to nap. That's all we want to do. We just want to nap and some cats
So
and maybe
the
like a
takeaway
puppy.
is we're all cats.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's
We're all
got
cats.
the yard?
But yeah, so I think navigating it just comes down to find the way to counter it that makes you the most comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I felt exhausted asking all the questions or getting asked all the questions. So I said, why am I answering this for them?
Yeah.
Like,
Google
they might
exists.
be asking from a genuine place of ignorance, and they don't know that they're coming off that way. So when I ask them why, it is half shady, but it's half, why do you think that this is a question to ask?
Which is why I love that, because it makes them become introspective whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I will just say again, as a queer person of color and a drag queen and someone who's gender nonconforming and gender non-binary and all the other nonsense I can throw on at, because I have it, it is never your job to educate someone.
Yeah.
It's great to do. Please do it. But if you can't handle it today, that's just today. That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can also say, ask me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like,
Take care of
you
yourself
legit
first.
can.
Definitely do that. But yeah, I agree with Ellie. Do it in a way that feels comfortable. And if it's like a not today attitude, then take the not today attitude.
Yeah. Because being compassionate and being empathic and understanding somebody else's existence and trying to educate someone because you are an empathic, compassionate person, it is exhausting. And it does create literal fatigue. And it will shut you down.
Yep.
So when you can't, that's fine. You can't.
Next question.
Hi. First off, bi solidarity.
Yup.
But like bi with a man solidarity. So like who knows? This is more about like the podcast itself. While I do like podcasts, it's so hard for me to like get into it because like instead of like as opposed to like webcomics, because I'm on webcomics all the time, where like I can just read, get caught up, wait for the next update to come out. With a podcast, I do have to set out like a chunk of time, and sometimes I don't have that time. And my main question is, how do you either A, get people like that into podcasts more, or B, give them alternatives to that, where like if you guys have a podcast, but you'd be like, oh, we have like a webcomic that somebody's working on, which is like the same storyline or something like that.
So for us at Blood Crow, we are specifically designed to be binge worthy because we're American Horror Story format. Every season is a different story, and you have 20 episodes. They're probably about 30 minutes each. So, that is a chunk of time, but you can consume an entire story in a set block of time. So if you come into our show, you might come in right now while season 3 is airing, then you just gotta listen to season 3. You don't have to listen to 1 or 2. You can get to those when you want. And so sometimes it's just finding the content that is formatted in a way that you can digest it better. Because if I find a podcast and it's 500 episodes deep, I'm like, no.
Yeah. And I do feel that very strongly. At least with audio fiction, there's all different kinds, and short form fiction is also out there. I'm going to shout out a creator that I personally love, A.R. Olivieri. He does a lot of short form fiction where his episodes are like 2, 3, 4 minutes each. And he's got several completed shows at this point. You can just listen to the whole thing maybe in an hour and you have an entire story. I love him. He's the sweetest man. But at least in the audio fiction world, there's something for everyone, and you can probably find a format in the short form fiction space that might be a little bit more grabbing for you.
Piggybacking off that real quick with a recommendation, Mercury, a broadcast of hope.
Yes.
Which is presented by Atlanta Radio Theater Company.
They're here.
They're here.
They're in the Hyatt.
That show is the best show to be listening to right now in the political landscape because it is 5 minutes of hope.
Yes.
It's like this post-apocalyptic broadcast, but it's always focused on hope. And just getting 5 minutes of hope to start your day.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
And you can listen to it once a day. They take it down at the end of the day, and because it's set up like a terrestrial radio broadcast, so you miss it, but you're never lost. I only started it 2 months ago, and I feel like I know everything.
Yeah.
So.
And if you want access to the other episodes, you can go to their Patreon for $1.
True. And also in their shop, they're selling the first year for $20.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, in trying to get your friends into podcasting and actually consuming the podcast, I think a great point was just raised is that podcasts are all kind of shapes and sizes. I may do a podcast that's 3 hours long because I'm crazy, but I was also inspired more by like the long form radio shows like SiriusXM and stuff. But there are a lot of podcasts that are only 5 minutes of your day, things on NPR. And so there are a lot of great short form podcasts you can participate in. But also, and something, I kind of tell people is that, listening, audio is only one of your 5 senses. So you can still be doing things with the other 4 while you're listening to a podcast. And for a lot of people, I know we have a lot of people that listen to my show that maybe they're working, they do like a data entry processing type of job, and they listen there. I know my husband will clean the house while he's listening to shows. And that's kind of like a thing that he does, or making dinner or what have you. A lot of people are listening in the car. I mentioned I'm a gamer. I sometimes will go play an MMO. Here I go, vegetable night on Final Fantasy 14. But you know what? I've heard the end game music a million times. It's great, but tonight I'm going to do a podcast while I play the game. So there's other kind of creative ideas on how to get somebody to kind of work a podcast into their routine they're already doing?
I would say too, if there is something that a podcast that you do, that you does, that you think a friend might like our format is, we do a different book every time. You might have a friend who loves to listen to people dig on action novels. So, here's a podcast that I like, and they're talking shit about James Patterson, and
as all should.
Yeah. Sneeze. Here's another shitty book.
and other kind of like
You're welcome,
non-fiction,
nobody.
non-linear things like that. Like, it's just one thing that might be of interest to someone to whet their appetite, and that might be what ends up hooking them.
And so we have another question.
Sorry, I'm super nervous. I don't usually ask questions during
That's
panels.
okay.
I want to know how have any of you ever dealt with criticism or bad comments or something?
I love that my audio producer immediately started laughing because he knows what I'm gonna say.
A little story. I would stream. Don't really think that a lot of people are going to watch my stream. I was streaming Mega Man Battle Network 6.
Heck yeah.
Cute.
Just low people coming in and out. Out of nowhere, just this huge group of people just started coming in, and here's all this hate, all this like really bad comments, and it made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
A friend of mine sent me a message and said, "Hey, someone found your stream and saw that you had a pride flag on your wall and a bear pride flag on your wall, and so they decided, hey, we're gonna get you." I was wondering how do you guys deal with and trying to come back and go back and make more content?
I got something to say. As somebody who was body shamed on television, # Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not there. I will begin with saying, you will always remember the negative comments. People can tell you positive things all day long, but what's going to stick out to you is that one random person who said some nonsense to you for no reason. And that's when you're going to remember. Try your best just to not dwell on that. It's impossible. I am guilty myself of, on layovers, clapping back in the comments. Highly don't advise. Super fun. Please do it. Do never do it. But it's satisfying. It's one of those things that like comes with the internet. It just comes with it. Like, people are jerks. They just is. People are jerks.
The internet is just high school on a grand scale.
Yeah. And people, when they're not being seen and they have like a security screen in front of them, their worst qualities will come out. All the negative things they went through in their day that they, just like bottle up and like push down, come right back out once there's a screen and a stranger and anything to make them feel superior for a minute.
That's why I love the show Dylan Marin does called Conversations
Yes, that is a wonderful
with People
show.
Who Hate Me.
Yeah.
Where he reached out to people who left him hateful, derogatory comments and just said why and got to know them as a person. And most of those episodes, they come to a better place by the end of it.
Yeah, and I, as a point, one of the things Dylan does say is empathy is not endorsement.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with what they say in the least.
Exactly.
But just remember that they are a person. I will say I love a bear. Don't ever be ashamed for that. I love a bear.
Never be ashamed. Never.
We
And I get stuff all the time from my voice or my laugh. I actually just got a review.
Women podcasters and their voices.
In their voices.
Why is
Oh my
that
Women
always the
just
thing?
existing.
Yeah.
Like, just
I get stuff
existing.
for and it used to bother the hell out of me. And now I've taken up, and please excuse my language, like we're all adults, no, fuck them.
Yeah.
Honestly. But if you ever feel unsafe, use reporting features. I don't care if you have to crash the site. Protect yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also just remember that it says more about them than it does about you.
It really is.
Yeah.
And also, your feed, your stream, your Instagram story, your Facebook page, it is your curated space. If you don't like what's going on, fix it.
Yeah.
Wipe
Yep.
it out, block, delete. It can be someone with like 20 followers. Do not care.
Yep.
Yeah.
You say one negative thing to either me
Block.
or someone else who's commented, bye, you blocked.
Yeah.
Don't care who you are.
And that's the thing, 2 points for me. One, my day job, I work side by side with a department that handles reporting of issues, try not to say what my day job is, but handles reporting of things like that. Keep reporting. That is what we tell people all the time, because the people that you report to, legally, they have to find something that fits the criteria that they are allowed to ban on, and they probably very, very much want to ban that person for you. They want to take care of you. They want to help you. But maybe that one thing you reported just didn't have enough evidence for them, and they can't do it because legally they can't. So keep reporting, because then you're building the case. You're saying, see, they came back. See, and you're gonna feel like you're bothering them, but you're not. We spend all day going, please keep reporting it, please, every time. And then like with Blood Crow, this is the weird thing, we got a ton of hate for having an extremely gay show set in a historical period that had no homophobes. They were like, this is unrealistic. People wouldn't be this accepted. So in our second season, we shot a homophobe in the face in the third episode. We introduced him, he found out a character was gay, the F started to come out of his mouth, and he got shot in the face. and then directly after that, I said, and that is for all of you that criticized us for that. We are a safe show for that.
Can I just say real quick, and I think you know this at this point, that like, you know, this wasn't you, this was them. They were going from you to the next person. It was a hate group. It was an internet hate group that was targeting you. And you know what? If you feel the need to disconnect because you can't deal with it right now, as you know, Dax was saying earlier, that sometimes if you have every right to unplug and not need to entertain today, that is fine. But I hope at the end of the day, just remember, and if it helps you motivate with that next stream, there's somebody else out there who might not be chatty, who might not be talking, who does see that bear flag in the background of your stream and go, my people.
Yeah.
And also, based on analytics, technically, the numbers show an uptick in views.
Technically, that still counts towards your partner numbers.
And this is maybe a little bit cheesy, but I have found so much strength in being surrounded by very positive people who do appreciate what I do. My co-host, I don't know what she's like, made of Teflon. Every terrible review that we get, not that there's very many, not to brag, but she has no problem being like, did you see that review of that person who won't stop talking about our vocal fry? What a nerd.
I've started sharing that to our fans on Discord.
I want to do it worse the next episode, like, hello.
And that is what she does all the time.
Welcome to the show.
My name is Carmella.
We had a 1-star review. We had a 1-star review for Gay Agenda, and I posted it in our Discord. I said, fans, look at this thing. Someone said we should tone down the gay. We're 4 seasons in.
Our greatest 1-star review was, makes me feel bad for being a whitey. Which I was like, okay.
Well, good. All right. But I will say, as a new Twitch streamer, and this is advice that I got from another female Twitch streamer, and it's painful advice in the beginning, but it helped me, so I share it, even though it is painful. If you need to sterilize your space to get comfortable, to get started, because Twitch is terrifying to start with. If you need to sterilize your space of those things so you can feel comfortable building your presence in front of the camera, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're not bad to your community if you feel you need to take down the flag for a little while just to feel comfortable on your own stream. Like Dax said, it's your space.
Your curated space.
I have nothing behind me that is LGBT when I'm on stream, but every now and then I just stick a little bi flag back there. Just every now and then.
Just pop it in. Just pop it in.
You guys are coming to watch me build a house. Like, if you didn't guess.
Just park a U-Haul truck behind you.
Right?
Just always wear a tool belt. You're fine.
and that was kind of painful advice in the beginning, of to be told, like, it's all right if you want to be straight passing on your stream, because we don't want to be that. We don't want to be in the closet. But when you're putting yourself out on the internet, it is okay to do that for a little while until you feel comfortable, but always do it with the goal in mind that one day you will put it back up. Don't do that forever. And that's just my take.
Yeah, but also I always feel that, like, in being authentic, being gay is not your entire existence.
Exactly.
However, it should be noted.
Mm-hmm.
They is a homosexual. However, don't feel obligated to like be like rainbows forever, ignorant color palette. Just be you, and if it comes up, it comes up. Oh, it's ignorant. Rainbows are ignorant, which is why I love them.
I love you.
You can't deny that is nonsense.
It's nonsense, but every June at my job.
Hello world, move, I'm gay.
The best is show it. They're like, we're gonna have Pride Day on Friday. I'm like, cool.
Pride Day every day,
I
all
can
the
dress
time.
however I want. They go, yeah. I walk in full drag king. They're like, ma'am, I need to see your badge. I'm like,
Ma'am.
Well, this is difficult. Ma'am, I need to see your
You don't like
badge.
mine so much.
They're like, what is this? I was like, you said we could dress however we wanted, and this is me.
So I showed sequins.
I came in the anniversary of the Pulse shooting. I live in Florida. I came in full regalia. I had a rainbow wig. I had human and just
Yep.
And that's what I did. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is an important day for me. I need to commemorate those people who lost their lives due to ignorance.
Yeah.
And I came in exactly like that.
We were in Disney the day after it, and we had pulse pins.
Yeah.
And just, it was weird because even in Disney, we still felt kind of unsafe.
Yeah.
Because of the time. But then watching the cast members, like, freaking stormtroopers walked past us. They saw the buttons, and they just, like, very low-key did, like, a little thumbs up. And just feeling that safety.
They're all dancers.
Yeah.
They're all gay.
Every
My
cast
best
member.
friend from childhood, his dream in life was to dance for Disney.
Yeah.
He did that.
Yeah.
He's like, girl. It was a circuit party at all times.
But so thank you guys so much for coming out. We're going to go down the row, and everyone just say where they can find you on social media and if you have any other panels coming, starting with Dax.
Hi, my name is Dax, ExclamationPoint. You can find me on all social media channels as Daxclamation. That's DaxClamation. I will be doing panels tomorrow. I will be working with a costume track. I do a wig styling panel every year. We do one a day. It's 2.5 hours of me lecturing about wigs. It's exhausting, but super fun. Highly recommend. Otherwise, my schedule is on the back of my badge. I can't read because Dragon Con. Have fun.
I'm Tracy. You can find our podcast at diversityissues.libsyn.com. Also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just Google Diversity Issues Podcast. It'll show up. We've got a live episode tonight at 10 talking about the wicked and the divine.
Love it.
And then we're also, Robin, who hosts the podcast with me, we're on a podcast over in the diversity track about LGBTQ relationships in entertainment and pop culture tomorrow at 4. I've got flyers with our website and where we're going to be the rest of the con.
Cool.
Again, I'm Carmella. You can find us at trivialwarfare.com. I'm on Twitter at TWA First Lady. And I don't have any more panels this weekend, but I will be here till Monday. So if you see me, you can say hi, we can talk, we can chat. I'm mostly friendly. if I give you like an anxious look, just give me a second. I'll regroup.
I need this, like the vest for the dogs. To say
I need a
I'm
thunder
shy.
vest. I would just live under a weighted blanket if I could. But yeah, I will be here till Monday. Come check us out. So thanks.
Orange Lounge Radio is my long-running show and all the iTunes and Google Play podcasts and all those fun spaces. And that's live Sunday nights at vognetwork.com, vognetwork.com. I love Twitter, and please consider following me, Mr. Rob Roberts, at Mr. Rob Roberts.
You can find my show at worstbestsellers.com. And on Twitter, we are Worst Bestseller with no S. And I personally am 14 across on Twitter, all spelled out. No more panels, but I am also here till Monday hanging around.
And you can find me on Twitter, Ellie_A_Collins. You can find Blood Crow Stories at TBCS Podcast. And my panels, I will be running from here to host Prom Watch over in the West End, but I will be back to do Voices with Me, character voices, going over voice acting. And then I'll be back at Prom Watch. And then on Sunday, I'll be doing audio drama production and you. So thank you guys again for coming. You have all been beautiful.
Thanks so much! I'm I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, you
life
were great.
is life.
Oh no, you're
Yeah, it
wonderful.
I had so much fun. Thank you guys so much. Like,
Thank
thank
you
you
for
guys
coming.
so much.
I'm glad you made it even if late.